Hello, my name is Sam Sloan. I'm a candidate for President of the United States. I want to talk about my experience in the securities field. I worked 2 years for the major securities firm Hayden Stone. After that, I branched out. I started my own securities firm, Samuel Sloan and Company. I was a trader in over-the-counter stocks and bonds. I started having conflicts with the Securities Exchange Commission, basically over the policy of the Securities Exchange Commission, especially their enforcement chief, Stanley Sporkin, of suspending trading in securities. What they would do is, if a company was late in filing their 10K or 10Q reports, they would simply suspend trading in that security. They claimed that they were doing it for the protection of investors, but what they actually did by suspending trading in securities, they made the securities worthless, because the people who bought those securities and invested their money in those securities were not able to sell them because these trading had been suspended in those securities, simply because the company was a little bit late in filing their 10K or 10Q reports. So I finally filed a court case against the Securities Exchange Commission for doing this. I don't think they should publish the investors just because the company management was late in filing the report. Because most of those securities that were suspended, they never came back into trading. Anybody who invested their money in those particular stocks and bonds lost their money. They never got their money back. So they were basically saying, in order to cure a disease, you have to kill the patient. That's what they were doing in order to stop people from being late filing their 10K and 10Q reports. They would simply suspend trading in securities. So what I did was, I filed petitions to reestablish trading in 200 different companies. I filed them over a period of the last week of December of a year, just before the end of the year. The reason was to get them trading before the end of the year, so that people would be able to declare the losses on their income taxes and take a loss, take a tax loss on securities by relisting these particular securities. People would be able to write them off their income taxes, which they couldn't do if there was no market for the securities. So I submitted a listing of 200 at the same time, simultaneously. I submitted 200 applications to relist all these securities. These are all securities which had previously been suspended by the Securities Exchange Commission. Stanley Sporkin, who was the SEC enforcement chief, later on became a federal judge, was so incensed by this, me relisting 200 securities, that he commissioned a helicopter that flew from Washington, D.C. to New York City to land with a complaint he was going to file against me, ran down to the federal court, filed an injunction against me from relisting all these 200 securities. This was all done on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, 1974, they filed an injunction against me from relisting all these securities. By the way, there was nothing illegal about these companies. They weren't doing anything wrong. They had simply been late in filing their 10Q reports, and they had since filed those reports. So there was nothing illegal about these companies. There was nothing wrong with these companies, nothing wrong with their stocks and bonds. It was just the SEC didn't like me fighting against them, didn't like me relisting these securities. They wanted to punish, and establish a policy. So basically, they got this injunction against me, and then they used that as a basis for suspending my own trading license. And I fought them a case in the United States Supreme Court. I eventually won the case. The case is SEC against Samuel Sloan, 436 U.S. 103, 1978. You can look it up. And I won the case 9-0. All 9 justices agreed with me that what the SEC did was wrong. But unfortunately, the problem was that by filing these cases against me, they had also put me out of business. So I was now out of business. I've never been able to get back into the business, but because of a block against me from having a securities firm. So even though I was 100% right and the Securities Exchange Commission was 100% wrong and the United States Supreme Court ruled in my favor, I was never able to get my securities license back again. So now I went into a different aspect of securities field, which is proxy solicitation and helping companies buy back their companies. A lot of companies have gone public and raised money through public offerings, but now it's a tremendous burden on them because they don't want to file these 10K and 10Q reports. The average company spends a minimum of $100,000 a year just complying with the SEC rules about reporting companies. So what they want to do is they want to buy back all their stock back, which they sold to the investors. They want to buy back from these customers and get their stocks back so they don't have to file any 10K and 10Q reports. Again, the SEC doesn't like that either because they want to keep these people being required to file all these reports with the SEC. It's an ego problem. These people are egomaniacs, and they want They want all the investors to obey them. You know, they're not helping the investors. They're not protecting the investors. They're causing the investors to lose their money. So again, I fought cases against the SEC about this. Small stockholder buybacks, we call them.